Welcome new and old friends. My name is 242 and today is going to be a little different. I have 4 true stories for you, but 3 of them come originally from other collabs, and 1 is brand new for this video. So you might have heard some of these before, but I do hope you enjoy my telling. So grab yourself a tea or coffee. Things are about to get interesting. My Plenty of Fish Nightmare by Some Girl from Saskatchewan. When I just finished college, I was living in a 1-bedroom townhouse split. I met a guy on Plenty of Fish, and at the time, I wasn't exactly smart about my online digital footprint. Not like I've changed, but at least now I'm not as ridiculous. Anyways, he seemed like a decent guy. He was really good looking, said he had a good job, nice teeth, don't you judge me, and looked like he cared about his personal health. All things I would typically look for in a guy. I'm not a shallow human, but I like to be presentable, and if I'm with someone, I would like them to take care about being presentable in a business environment also. After about a week of chatting online, we agreed to meet. We met in a restaurant downtown, which was really far from where I lived. When I got there, I noticed him standing at the door. We sat down to eat, and the evening went great. At the end of the date, we said goodbye, and I got in my car and began to drive away. I realized right away he was following me. Because of the distance to my house, I wasn't immediately scared because it's a big city. Maybe he'll turn off the freeway? He didn't. My exit was coming up and I decided not to take it. I kept driving. I circled the entire city on the freeway and he stayed right behind me. I was starting to panic a bit, so I decided to go to my friend's house instead of mine. And when I pulled out the exit, I noticed he didn't. So I had a little bit of a moment to breathe and decide, okay, hoop it, I'll just go home. I took the off-ramp back onto the freeway and began going back to my exit. I got home and showered and was getting ready for bed and started feeling dumb because, was that really him? Am I overreacting? Do I ask him if he was following me? Just a number of things were racing through my overactive imagination. Or so I thought. I decided I was going to message him and just said, had a good time, good night. And when I started typing, all of a sudden a message came through my phone of a picture of my car outside my house. I nearly died. My heart jumped out of my chest. I started shaking. I didn't know what to say. And he texted me and said, I didn't know you lived across the street from me. I've met my neighbors, and not once have I met him. There is a huge apartment complex kitty corner to the townhouse, so maybe that's where he lived. I don't know. I popped up and went to look outside, and there he was, standing there outside, like he was waiting for me. I opened the door, and he asked if he could come in, and if I wanted to still hang out. I told him I was exhausted, and I'd rather just crash out as it had been a long day. The next morning, I woke up to go to work, and my windshield had been smashed, my car was keyed, my back 2 tires were slashed, and as I noticed the damage to my vehicle, the guy came out of his car with 2 coffees, and is like, oh, I thought I'd surprise you with a morning coffee. So again, I'm freaking out. I called the cops and reported the damage to my vehicle. This guy offered to drive me, and something in my gut was like, don't get in that car. So I called my boss, told him the situation, and explained I wasn't going to be there until after the police came. This guy just hung out the whole time. By the way, when the police finally got there, this guy was acting really suspicious. He walked away and was hiding on the other side of his car. I filed the report and the police basically said, hope you have insurance, and were on their way to leave. They pulled around the corner, and all I heard was the sirens on the cop's light turn on, and the cops scream, "Freeze! Put your hands in the air and get down on your knees!" I looked, and the cop's got his gun drawn at this guy, and this dude is like on the ground getting arrested. I spoke with a cop after he got into the back, and he explained he was wanted for stalking, breach of prohibition, assault with a deadly weapon, fraud, and aggravated sexual assault. I was shocked. It took me a couple days to get over the hypothetical situations that I could have been in. About a week later, I was on my way out the door to work, and guess who was sitting on my driveway? We live in Canada, so essentially you're released on condition until you go to jail. I told him I was late for work, but I'd call him when I was done work. I never went to work that day. I went and found a new apartment in another area of the city. I also changed my phone number and hired my friend's husband and his friend to go pack my apartment up and move it to their place for a month. And then move it to my new place because I was so scared this dude would follow them while moving. So, that's my horror story of the first time I used plenty of fish. Dunkin Donuts Terrorist by Lawyers Guns Money 90. Got some Dunkin' this morning, and it brought this story back to my mind. Figure I'd share it here. During high school and college, I worked at Dunkin' Donuts for about 7 years and bounced around to a few different locations. I was used to working at the Dunkins in my town, where we get the yeast rings delivered periodically and frost them ourselves as needed. I transferred to a new shop about a half an hour from my house with all the same responsibilities except for the donuts. They were delivered by corporate and they arrived frosted almost perfectly. They looked like the plastic donuts they show on the commercials. Always round and not squished together, and they would dip them in the frosting so it was evenly spread and neat. It was a busy Saturday morning and it was close to Valentine's Day, so we had a fresh order brownie battered donuts delivered that morning. We were slammed, which was normal for the weekends, so it wasn't out of the ordinary to see my manager, who I'll call Jeremy, running around stressed out. When he first ran past me, I didn't think anything of it, and I continued making sandwiches at the sandwich station. He rushed by carrying a pastry tray, and I watched him begin frantically throwing something in the trash, looking worried as hell. At first, I laughed and just said, "Jeremy, what the heck are you doing?" He straightened out and looked absolutely beside himself. I have never seen Jeremy look so lost, so I asked him what was going on and if something was wrong. Someone filled the brownie battered donuts with staples. He told me that he got a phone call from corporate that one of the stores in our chain, which contains 10, had somehow discovered multiple staples in every donut in their order. That was at least 48 donuts for our store and more or less for the other 9, depending on their sales. They told Jeremy that we had to get rid of the most recent delivery because whoever put the batter in the filler dumped a ton of staples in it as well. Thankfully, we hadn't sold any of the previous order yet from the morning because it was still relatively early. But the more I thought about it, the more I felt like I was going to get sick. What if a young child had gotten one of them? I pictured some family sitting at home on Saturday morning, going out to get some drinks and donuts for the kids, and imagining everything else that could have happened after. I never found out what came of it, and as far as I know, neither did my boss. I'm assuming nothing happened because thankfully I never heard anything on the news. Makes me wonder if there was a cover-up, and I hope they were able to find out who the asshole was who did it. So, Dunkin Donut Terrorist, let's not meet, and I hope somehow you're rotting away somewhere. If you're enjoying this video, hit that like button and make sure it feels it. Trust Your Gut, Your Dog, or Your Cat by Emil6. This happened 15 years ago when I had just come home from college on winter break. Home this time was not the house I grew up in. My parents had just moved closer to our small city. So it just didn't feel the same to be in a different space. Maybe that's what triggered my worry. In my family, I'm always the one thinking of the worst case scenario, generally distrustful, and mostly seeming like an annoying worrywart. Call it what you will, but it's also the gift of fear, alright? One cold night, my parents had gone to bed upstairs and my dog had followed suit. I thought I'd watch TV in the living room for a bit before going to sleep, settling in on the couch. The living room was at the front of the house, and with the recent move, the shutters on the windows weren't there at the time, only see-through curtains that weren't really drawn. I noted this, but I was used to the rural setting where only ones who could see in were the neighbors we knew so well. I'm watching TV for about a half an hour when the screen cuts out. It goes snowy. This was back in the day when you watched whatever your local cable channels brought you. I looked up from whatever I was doing, texting, maybe with a flip phone, at first thinking, well, that sucks, but something felt off. I tried the remote, but no other channels worked, so I was sitting there thinking what I should do instead, when my cat jumps up onto the windowsill and starts wailing. What the? This might seem innocuous, but anyone who knew my cat knew this was not par for the course. He was pacing and wailing at the window. A feeling of dread washed through me and I was frozen. That feeling of dread is so fiercely visceral. What the hell is going on? What is out there? I tried to settle myself down in this unfamiliar, dark house and felt a bit better because what are the chances? But then there it was. I swear on all that I have that this cold waft of air blew through, and then I heard the side door. I didn't realize that door was even there at the time. I heard a door on the side of the house and felt cold air. I became unfrozen and bolted. I ran upstairs to wake my parents and slumbering dog, and frantically telling them someone is trying to get in the house. They, I think, were annoyed. I'm a worrier, remember? Still, they get up and I think try to placate me by looking around the house. They go check all the rooms, including the basement, while I'm scared and exasperated. They are sleepily roaming around into dark rooms unarmed when God knows who has probably made it inside already. Well, they didn't find anything. They verbally patted me on the head and said goodnight, and I felt foolish. That is until the next morning. I don't know what prompted my parents to call the police, but they showed up and asked me how I knew someone was out there. Whoa, hold on, what? I still answered. Well, the cat was meowing a lot on the window and my voice trailed off, waiting for reaction I usually get. When I got the cop smirking. A cat, huh? Kiba? Get on with it. He goes on to say that someone cut the cable wires on the side of the house, that either someone or someones thought that they were disarming some alarm, or they saw me sitting watching TV and wanted to mess with me. And the side door? Muddy grounds gave the ability to see fresh tracks right up to it. It didn't look like it had been fooled with, but I know what I heard, whatever it was. I knew it, I said to my parents. The triumph feeling was short-lived when I started to mull what I was so sure about had been true. True, I did know someone was out there. I also knew I would always check that side door and take some cues from the cat, just to be safe. That time I crossed paths with a convicted serial killer. By Snoodonkey 5457. This happened a long time ago. I'm guessing back in 2006, and I couldn't have been older than 4 years old at the time, yet I vividly remember the fear I felt during this encounter. It was an early summer morning and the sun was up, but a few people were out. In fact, the streets were practically dead that morning. My mom decided to take my sister, only 1 year old, sitting in a stroller, and I to throw away some garbage at the garbage station. I might add that the garbage station is kind of secluded from nearby houses, bordering one of those deep, dark forests of eastern Sweden. Since I was only 4 years old when this happened, the memories from this incident have faded a lot. However, my mom remembers all of it. She says that upon entering the garbage station, she immediately got an eerie feeling of being watched. I remember that feeling too. I felt creeped out, even though I didn't know why I was scared. I guess I could sense my mom's fear. Walking along the secluded garbage station, my mom suddenly stopped and told me this. Opie, hold on to the stroller as hard as you can and don't let go, no matter what. That's my most vivid memory of all of this, and I don't think I'll ever forget those words. I'll at least never forget how they made me feel. It was as if my blood turned to ice. I just froze. My mom sounds stern, but even as a toddler, you can sense when someone is that scared. My mom was definitely afraid of something. The rest is just a blur. I don't remember much apart from the aforementioned, so I'll let the rest of the story be told from the perspective of my mother. This is the recollection of her experience, recalled to the best of my ability, but in my own words. Not far from where we were standing, a truck was parked with a man seated in the front. Nothing unusual. A lot of truck drivers stopped to rest by the side of the road. But this man was staring. He wouldn't stop staring. He stared right at me, examining my body with this determined gaze of a predator. Gluing the three of us in his sights, he truly seemed pleased by the fear he instilled in our faces. And his eyes, they were something else. Almost as if they didn't belong to a human, but rather a predator of the savannah. I felt like prey, stuck in the claws of a lion. I just couldn't move. That's when he smiled at me. I remember that dead smile, those cold, calculating eyes, and the way he licked his lips. Almost as if to say, I could kill you if I wanted to. I believe this was the point in time into this strange encounter when my mom told me to hold on to the stroller, to hold on tightly and not let go. My mom is a small woman, 160 centimeters, weighing only 55 kilograms, about 5 foot, 100 pounds. And she could easily have been overpowered by this overweight man in the truck. My mom later admitted she was afraid he'd jump out of that truck and knock her over, possibly assaulting her, or even kidnapping me and my 1-year-old sister. We bolted out of there. We didn't even throw away much garbage that morning. We just turned around and walked home as fast as my mom could do, with a stroller and a 4-year-old toddler by her side. We never talked about what happened that day, up until very recently. This incident has always lingered somewhere in the back of my mind as that weird thing that happened when I was a child, and every time I walk past that garbage station, I get a weird feeling in the pit of my stomach. As previously mentioned, this happened in 2006. Fast forward to 2008, the face of a 10-year-old little girl called Angela was printed across the front of the page of every newspaper in sight. She had been abducted, sexually assaulted, and murdered, and the perpetrator was an overweight truck driver named Anders Öcklund, now known as one of Sweden's most infamous killers. Anders Öcklund was charged with the murder of Angela alongside the sexual assault and murder of a woman named Pernilla. He is also suspected of abducting another little girl who's still missing, making him a pedophile and a serial sexual assaulter and a serial killer. My mom says that when she saw Öcklund's picture in the paper, especially when she saw those cold, familiar eyes, she knew he was the creepy man from the garbage station that early morning all those years ago. Thinking how my mom, or my sister, or me, or all of us could have been his victims, that sends chills up my spine. Anders, even though you're behind bars, let's not ever meet again. So, what did you think of these stories? Tell me down below. If you're a new friend, become an old friend by subscribing and turning that pretty little bell to all notifications. Now, if you'd like to join my Patreon, keep up with my socials, or find my podcast, all that info is on the screen before you, but I also have a tree link down below in the description with a few other bonus links. But as always, thank you for watching and listening. It always means the world to me. I hope you have a good day.